It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
What's her name? What's the wife's name in it?
Oh, Kathleen O'Hara.
But what's her?
Oh, Moira.
Moira. Ha, Moira.
She's from Home Alone, right?
Yeah, she's from Home Alone. And
She and Dan Levy have been together like as comedic partners since like they were early 20s in like a Groundlings type of group, and they've made all sorts of. You ever seen like Best in Show or there's one about folk singers, like those satire type of movies, and they're in those together. They've done so much work together. They're hilarious.
I had no idea she was in Home Alone until
Mom, right?
there was a commercial with her and Kevin Hart, and I recognized her from Schitt's Creek. And Kevin Hart's running around the store, and she's like, Kevin, like yelling Kevin like she does in Home Alone. And then like they reference Home Alone, and I like looked at her and I was like, no way, because she obviously doesn't look the same anymore.
Right.
But she's definitely had some work done. But I was mind blown. I was just like sitting there.
I think that movie's like 30 years old now. I saw it like to make you feel really old. I saw
It's
you might not
definitely at
even be
least
that
30.
yet. But I remember seeing something like on Twitter, 30-year anniversary. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's my favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah, and it's weird when you see Macaulay Culkin in something else. Like he was in.
Yeah.
I watch weird
What was
shows.
he in?
I watch right. This is my TV selection. I watch American Horror Story. There's like a million
Yeah.
seasons,
Yep.
and he's in one of the seasons, and you're always just like, oh, that's Macaulay Culkin. And he's not 5 years old right now.
No. Yeah, the show I showed Mike a clip, and it's like an Italian mafia type movie show, and the guy kills somebody, shoots him right in the head, and then 2 minutes later goes, not sure I should have done that. And I literally lost it. I was like, how are you going to say that out loud after you just did it? Like, you can't take that one back, guy.
No. You guys, did you guys do Ozark?
Yeah. Did you guys?
I didn't finish.
Ooh.
I didn't finish it because
Why?
it just got really slow.
I think it got complicated
Yes.
for a little while. It took me a little bit to catch up for the final season, like kind of getting back into
Season
who's
3
who and
wasn't
stuff.
great to me.
Could Paul's brain not handle the complication
I
of the
think
show?
so. I think it was too
It's very possible.
too layered.
It's very possible.
I had difficulty, so
very
I needed
possible.
like a flow chart of characters and who did what to whom, and
I think part of it was season 3 wasn't as good as the first 2 seasons to me, and then it took so long for season 4 to come out that I was.
that's the problem with the
Well, it was
Netflix.
and the COVID that delayed
Right.
Yeah.
delayed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it took so long for season 4 to come out that I was just like, I'm not interested anymore.
It happens.
Do you watch shows and can you shut off your work brain? Do you think about psychology of characters or no?
I do. It's funny because this is very embarrassing to admit, but most of what I watch anymore is like mindless. Like I was Bravo for a long time, Housewives and all of that, and then I watch like, it's so embarrassing, 90 Day Fiance, like stuff that is. But you can pathologize those people for sure.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's like,
Oh, yeah.
that's like a feast for me. But I try not to. But I don't get the time like I used to between sports and working and doing all
Right.
sorts of stuff. But I watch trash. I do.
I mean, when your job requires you to use your brain as much as probably yours does,
yeah.
watching mindless things is probably beneficial.
Honestly, I probably scroll on TikTok more than I do anything because
That's-
that's like a wormhole, right? That's
Yeah,
like
it's definitely a wormhole.
yeah. People are so funny on there.
It is.
Yeah.
But it plays right into the psychology of where we're all at today. We can quick bursts, short attention spans.
100%. It's also TikTok and doom scrolling on like Twitter, like I do sometimes. I've really had to censor myself
Yeah,
there.
Twitter's dangerous.
Edit who I follow, and I've set focuses on my phone now because I have zero self-control of when I can access apps. I actually took most of them off my phone. If I want to go on Instagram or I want to go on Facebook, they're only on my laptop. But I'll find myself, and it's actually like a form of dissociation. It's a form of checking out. Like I could have so much to do around my house. I could have new work stuff. I could get my kids somewhere or whatever. And I'll find myself sitting at the top of the stairs, just whether it's I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start, or I just feel like checked out for a second, and I'm just scrolling, and 10 minutes go by. I'm like, girl, you got stuff to do. Get up.
Yep.
But
I've been there.
yeah.
Been there way too many times.
Yeah, that's real. But everybody, we have Heather Lofink on tonight, and thanks for coming on, Heather. I appreciate
Sip,
it.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we first met you through your kids being at the gym, and then just kind of learning more about what you do, which intrigued us. And psychology, is a big piece of the gym with helping people with their goals and getting into consistent exercise routines. So Heather is a licensed mental health counselor. She has a bachelor's degree from The Ohio State
I'm
University.
going to correct you. That's the has been trademarked now. The Ohio
The
State.
Ohio State.
Right.
Shout out Buckeyes.
Her son would definitely correct you on that.
He has a shirt that says to that effect.
I'm sorry, Ohio State fans. Then a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Walden University, where you also have a certificate in sports psychology.
Yeah.
And I just love that you work with, everyday adults struggling with anxieties and depressions and relationships, like we all are every week, just
100%.
trying to be productive and get through and be happy. But you've also delved into the sports psychology side, which is equally on a different level, intriguing, because the world of youth sports is a crazy, crazy world today.
Is.
Have you seen or felt the increase in the awareness of mental health and it being accepting to talk about and seek treatment in recent years?
Most definitely. Just in a clinical setting, absolutely. There's so much more awareness now. The stigma is absolutely decreasing. We still have a lot of way to go, but I think it's absolutely more visible. More people are talking about it. Particularly with kids, they see their favorite singers or actors or athletes talking about their struggles, and I think what it does is let these kids know that they're not alone with how they're feeling, because mental health issues can be really isolating. You feel like unique. You're the only one. No one else can possibly understand what you're going through. So I think it's really important that they get to see other people, who look like they might have it all, right? Who are suffering in some similar ways that they are. So I love that they get to see some of that.
When did you first start practicing and seeing patients?
Yeah. So I went back, I stayed home with my kids for a lot of years, but until they were, I think 2015, and I went back to get a master's because it's something I always wanted to do. I was grateful for the time I got to stay home, but I'm someone who really likes to work. I like to make a difference. I like to have, my own identity and things. So it was really important to me. And I also wanted to show the boys, don't give up on your dreams. This was a long-held dream of mine, and for us three to be in school at the same time while they were in elementary, but mom's doing her homework at night too, I think it was a really cool thing for them to see, and bonding, and so they would never say it, but I think they're proud of me for doing that. But remind me your question again. I'm sorry.
Just the shift in the awareness of mental health. What brought that on?
You're asking me my practice. So after schooling, I went and did, so to get licensed, you have to pass a board exam, you have to do internship, all of that. And then you have to be supervised for 3,000 working hours, clinical hours. So I did my that part of it, my supervision for my license. I worked at Saratoga, or St. Peter's Addiction Recovery Center down in Saratoga. Really hard work. It's kind of like community mental health. Caseload 60. You're running groups all the time.
Caseload 60 for what? Over what period
clients,
of time? A day.
That's your total caseload. That's what you're expected to see in a week or two.
Okay.
But you're also, you have a 35-hour work week. You are running 9 hours of groups a week, and then you're supposed to fit all your clients in there. You're taking insurance, particularly Medicaid, and the documentation with that is just, out of this world. So once I became fully licensed, I didn't take very long. I kind of started to dip my toe in December of 20. Yeah. I kind of just put my name out there a little bit, like 8 spots in the evenings. And I didn't do any marketing. I didn't do anything. They were full within a week. So I moonlighted a little bit on both. But then when I realized, it maybe took me another month to put my notice in and say, this private practice is for me. I get to choose who I think I can help, who I want to work with. I can set my rates. I can take insurance if I want to, or if I don't, I can set my hours, which for me is huge. I'm, a single mom for all intents and purposes. So they have a great dad, but I do all the logistical planning and all of that stuff. So, and I like to be around for that. I always have been. So I wasn't willing to compromise on that once I was able to make a difference.
Well, you see that in a lot of different healthcare settings in the U.S. Like we've had, we work with a lot of physical therapy clinics. We've had PTs on, and you have some clinics that are just like a mill. Like, their caseload every week is crazy. And it's like, how can one therapist build rapport, understand a person's life, understand what's going on, diagnose them, treat them, when they have, just patients, boom, 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 every 15 minutes, you're seeing them quick.
Yeah, simple answer is you can't. There's no chance to build rapport, especially with that demographic. Addiction is hard to work in. They're very transient. The relapse rate is high. And so the work that they need, the help that they need, it's not possible, in my opinion. There are success stories, of course, and, you like to think you're making a difference, but I just don't think it's enough.
Right. When you first got into it, did you say, I want to work with this type of clientele, or it was more just kind of developed over time?
Well, when you go for your supervised hours, you have to meet certain criteria of who can supervise that. So you kind of go where you can get the work. So I was able to get the work there. And I was appreciative. I learned so much. If nothing else, I learned organization, time management, documentation. I learned, how to build rapport, and I learned a lot of clinical skills there as well. So I don't mean to make it sound like it was a total negative experience, but for me, that's a difficult population. So I really, kind of just took stock. I found myself really drained at the end of the day. I found myself, I had clients pass away. I would have clients relapse after they've had 8 months of sobriety, and I would just be crushed, and so that's not healthy for me either. So I knew that solely that population, where, and I'm the first to admit, they need so much help, and we so underserved. But I knew that I wasn't in that. I couldn't do that for long, and that's when I went into private practice.
It still must be hard, though. Is it hard to separate work and then you get home and then shut that down, or have you gotten better at it?
I try really hard. I started to practice what I preach with my clients of how, mindfulness, or kind of how you change your mindset. It is hard. It can be difficult. Some of those stories, I hear a lot of trauma, a lot of hard lives, a lot of really awful things, and it's hard not to feel, right? It's hard. I'm human too, so it's hard not to really feel those things emotionally. I've cried with clients when they tell me, they talk about their mom who just passed, and I, ask them to share their stories and share a picture, and I cry with them. It's hard, but I think I figured out a good formula for getting home, because I don't have a choice, right? I get home at 4. We had to leave at 4:15 for baseball. Right. So my mind, I get in the car, I listen to like some loud music or something. It's like a 12-minute drive home. And now I'm in go mode. Pack, dinner, this, that, and we're gone for the next few hours. So also distraction helps.
Yes.
What do you listen to?
Oh, God. Like 90s rap.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That was my era.
Because we had country on when you came in, and it was killing me.
Sorry, country lovers.
It was hurting my soul a little bit.
Sorry, country lovers.
We had a country group, and I read the room, and I close my eyes, and I close my ears, and I put it on. But yeah, then I hit on some Outkast. I didn't even know you were a 90s rap person.
We did hit on some
Outkast.
Outkast.
I was like, I graduated high school in 93, so that was like my era.
It blows my mind when I ask a kid if they know who Outkast is, and they go no, and I'm like, oh my God, I hate my life right now. I hate my life.
So sad.
And then I ask them who Andre 3000 is. They're like, oh yeah, I know who that is. I'm like,
it's interesting. You put country on. I work out at Metabolic in the morning, and the playlist makes all the difference, right? Get some in there. Today was like a disco, techno, Billy Joel when I walked in. I was like, oh, God, no. But you get like they used to have like Tupac Tuesdays where you go in and like these playlists were just like hyping you up.
That sounds like my kind of Tuesday.
Yeah, right?
I'll go Pac every day, Paul.
Right.
Yeah. Give me Tupac Tuesday,
Yeah.
Biggie Wednesday.
Yep.
Wu-Tang Thursday.
Yeah, we can make a whole list. No Country Friday.
There you go.
Yeah, we could get it going.
It is Friday.
What made you want to get into this field? Because it's a tough customer service, emotionally heavy field.
It's I've always wanted to, and it's going to sound like such a cliche, but like I really do love listening to people. Like somehow people gravitate towards me. I might just have a sign on my head that says good listener, because I'll just pick up a stranger who's like, you look like I could talk to you, and they're spilling out their life story to me. And psychology is different than therapy, but the way the mind works to me was just so fascinating. Why we do the things we do, the decisions we make, how childhood experiences affect us. It was so fascinating to me. And then to take it a step further to study how to provide therapy for people. I've just always been passionate about it. I always wanted to do it. And, when my kids were off and ready to go, I took the leap.
There you go. That's what you got to do. Like you said before, with not giving up on your dreams.
Yeah.
And
it was huge for me.
It'll definitely trickle down to the two of them as they get older.
It is, and I hope it's inspiring to a lot of people. I don't share my personal life with clients often, but I'll have a lot of clients who are 40 or late 30s, and they're very lost of like, I hate my career. It's too late to do anything else. And I'm like, no, it's not. I went back at this late age to do this. I hope I can serve as inspiration that, just because the fact of the matter is I said it when I was 25, and then I said it when I was 30, and then I said it when I was 35. Well, time's still ticking, right? And I'm not, so do it now. And honestly, it's one of the only things I've done that I've completed. Like I'll start a lot of things. I want to do this, I want to do that. So that's also another level for me is I've put a lot of work into this. I've put a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears and all of it into it. So for me, it's just a passion project too.
And it's such a Right, it's such a blend of like the science. Like I want to learn about the brain, and the human brain is wild, right? Like medicine's crazy, and we've learned a lot about the body over the years. Like just look at orthopedic surgeries and the advances in that we see every year. But like the mind is still kind of a mystery to people in ways, right?
Well, there's so much of your mind that you don't use. Like, what is it? You only use like a certain percentage of like your brain.
They say like 10%. I don't know what. I don't know the accuracy
I don't know
of
the
that.
accuracy, but I'm sure we don't use 100% of our brain.
No, but what's really cool is what we're starting to learn is how our nervous system affects our mental health, right? How we get dysregulated, what that does to our bodies. And so we're making so many inroads and connections, and the research and resources are much better now to help learn those things.
Yeah, we see that in here. How much do you ever delve into chronic pain or no?
Sometimes sometimes there's two sides to it, right? There's the chronic pain from injury or illness. And then there's chronic pain that's caused probably the somatic stuff, which is a lot of times it's real. It just doesn't have a medical reason, right? So we mostly attribute it to lifestyle, whether it's stress, whether we're not sleeping enough, whether we're not eating, whether we're not in a healthy relationship, if we treat our bodies poorly or just treat ourselves poorly. That's when you start noticing some of those somatic disorders.
Is it almost like Paul in here when people are working out and they have bad movement or bad technique, like those movement patterns, those synapses get wired stronger and the myelin gets thicker and that's how they're going to move, which could provoke them symptoms. It's the same psychologically, right? From trauma, abusive relationships, ways of thought. Yeah,
we create through trauma. New neural pathways are created to how we respond and react to things, right? So that absolutely is the case.
Like when you have a new person, how do you even start? Because
that's got
it's like you don't know this person, and now they're paying you to help them emotionally, psychologically. It's
like in here we know they're coming in. They want to either get in better shape. They want to feel better. They want to get better at their sport. Like there's like a checklist, and it's pretty simple where we can start from once we figure out exactly what their goal is. But as in your field, I feel like it's got.
Do you have a checklist, or?
I mean, I have a loose checklist. So, but with therapy, and I don't know if this applies to what you guys do. They may come in for one thing, but there's like 10 things under it that are really underlying, right?
But they may not be telling you that. Probably
they may not know it. They may not know it, right?
Right.
They can have a surface symptom, right? I can't date. I can't be around men. They scare me to death. And it's just, I don't know. I'm just scared to date. And they don't know why, that maybe they had a traumatic experience earlier with a guy or who knows. Most of the time they don't know it, right? They don't feel good, but they don't know why. So absolutely. How you asked me how I start, right? Do I have a checklist?
Yeah.
So basically I'll offer a 15-minute consultation to new clients. A lot of therapists don't like to do that because they feel like they're giving their time away for free. But for me, I feel like it lets me screen a little bit. I'll ask, first of all, the first thing I start with is, can I be helpful, right? Do I have whatever set of skills this person needs? Can I help them achieve their goals? And during that 15 minutes, I get some time to explain how I work, my philosophies, my theories, all that kind of stuff that they really don't care about. But also I learn what their issues are, what they're struggling with, what their goals might be. But I always begin with the end in mind. If therapy is successful for you, what will your life look like when we're done, right? How will your life be different? And that's a hard question to answer, right?
Yeah.
It's a really hard question to answer.
And are you ever done?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the issue. And just one other thing during that consultation, I think the biggest thing for me is getting the vibe of the other person. You can see their energy. You can see if the biggest indicator of success in therapy is the relationship between the client and the therapist. So a lot of these clients come from a really traumatic background, or they've been abandoned, or they've been abused, or they don't trust anybody, right? So building that rapport is incredibly important. So I also let them know, if 3 sessions in, I'm not your cup of tea, don't take it personally. Let me know. I'll absolutely refer you to someone who can help you better than I can. I went through 3 therapists before I found mine, and I want her to live with me now. So I think that's really the biggest thing is I try to get out of that.
Well, and piggyback off of what Mike just said, are they ever really done? I can just think of when we had Sue on, and the amount of times that she thought she was done.
Yeah.
But then she would go back.
Yeah.
And it was either, might have been for one visit, might have been for multiple visits.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like, I feel like, do clients feel like they have you in their back pocket when they've finished, technically?
Well, they know they do.
And
yeah.
that's like, I feel like you're never really done, but you know you have that resource now.
Absolutely. And I don't do a harsh cutoff, like, bye, you're good.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about in advance. With each client, I develop a treatment plan. We develop it together. What are your goals? And then how are we going to get there? How are these attainable? What's realistic? How do we measure these things, right? Because we want to check some boxes here for these clients. And when we can say we've checked the majority of the boxes, right? I start weekly with everybody, just to build rapport. I start weekly with everybody. Some clients I still have weekly. But then
that fly
Sky loves me.
That
Sky
fly
loves
wants
me.
You.
I know.
You got to Mr. Miyagi that.
Yes. And then after a while, when we get kind of into a good groove, we'll move down to twice a month, right? They don't need me. Go live 2 weeks without therapy and see how you do, right? You've got all the tools, you can do it. And it's more about me building up their confidence, cheerleading, pointing out all of the successes that they've made, because we don't always see those for ourselves. So I really hype them up to that. You absolutely can do this, right? Mm-hmm. And email me if you need to, reach out. And then eventually we get to like a monthly maintenance, kind of like a tune-up, where they come in once a month and kind of just tell me, download me what's going on in their lives. And by that time, most of the fires are out. You know, maybe there might be some smoldering somewhere, but they just want like a check-in. And then some clients are really good. If it's a singular issue that we can address, cool. If it's really complex trauma, going back to like childhood and, you know, repeated traumas, they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
The other piece of it is insurance, right? Because insurance, I'm not going to talk negatively, but they're hard to work with. And part of insurance that's hard to work with is I have to prove medical necessity for these clients, right? So if they ask me for a review, I have to turn on all of my notes. They audit me, right? So I'll turn on all of my notes. Here's my treatment plan. Here's my weekly notes. And I have to prove to them that this person still needs therapy. And that's not easy to do. They have a lot of criteria to meet. Mm-hmm. If someone's self-pay, cool, we can do whatever we want for as long as we want. But it's a little bit different with insurance because I'm managed.
There's more limitations, I guess you could say.
Totally.
Like it restricts you more.
Yep.
Like the one thing that you've been talking about is like building that rapport.
Yeah.
And here we can let our walls down a little bit more, I feel like, than someone that is in your field in a sense, because you're taking on people from trauma, whatever. Whereas in here, a lot of the times to get the kids to open up, I'll tell them something about myself. Uh-huh. And whether it's I've known Mike forever, since I was 7 years old, or I was in New York City, but I tell them something about myself, and then it helps get them to be like, oh, okay, I can talk to him more. I can open up a little bit more. How is that challenging for you in a sense, I guess, that you can't drop that wall completely? So
self-disclosure is what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So when we learn in school, do not self-disclose, never self-disclose. I don't necessarily abide by that. I think if it's relevant and it's helpful, I will do that. A lot of times I'll do it under the guise of like another client. Well, I have another client who went through this situation and here's what happened to them or what they did. But all my clients, or most of them, know I'm in therapy. You know, I think that's important. I call my therapist their grand therapist because I learn a lot. You know, I think the best therapists are in therapy. I learned so much from her that I can bring into my own practice. But I think, you know, if it's appropriate, if it's helpful, if it's not self-serving, right? They're not there to talk about me, but if they feel alone or they're in a situation that they've never been in or doesn't know anyone who's been in that, it can be really helpful.
Are some therapists self-serving? That's wild.
That's wild.
I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like any field. Like any field, right? There's good and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think of our field and
it's same thing.
I know.
There's many coaches that, when I think about that, Paul, there's a lot that are self-serving.
Well, and it's just a matter of, and we've said it before, to me, the best trainers and fitness coaches, they put their clients before themselves, always.
Yeah.
Like, if it comes down to it and I got to help somebody, like, if I'm working out and I got to help somebody with something in here, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to go help them.
But how much work do you have to do on yourself to be able to get to that point?
Yeah.
I feel like that's, you're in the field of psychology.
Yeah.
And in our field, you get a bunch of meats out there who are self-serving and, right, haven't really reflected on themselves. Like, you have to be able to really understand yourself and your relationships and how you perceive things before you help other people.
Well, that's why I also go to therapy. But I think it's a self-awareness that we're probably born with. right? A lot of people, you walk around this world, lack self-awareness. And I think I have a lot of it. Sometimes I think I have too much of it. But it's self-awareness. It's knowing, when you talk about something like a self-disclosure, is what I'm about to say that's in my life, is it helpful? Is it relevant? And is it appropriate to this person? And if it's not, zip your lips.
It's funny because I do that now, like more so in the last, probably since I moved to New York City, with being down there and the diverse clientele I got. Just like, okay, is what I'm saying relevant? Is it worth me saying? And is it going to help this person?
That's so important. And early on, like when you're working with people, you have to be very conscious of that. And then it becomes more natural. But you still have to be conscious of it.
I'm always conscious of it.
Yeah.
I'm someone that loves to talk. I love to gossip. I love to gab with my girlfriends. And, and some people, you build these relationships. I care deeply about my clients. And so sometimes, especially if I have a woman my age that has 2 children that I can connect with, it's easy for me to think about, to have the urge to like, yeah, girl, that one time, and I did this, and my kids did that, and I can't do that, right? I have to. So it happens. I think about it, rein it in.
That's a skill.
Yeah.
It's a serious skill you have to learn.
And that's where, so that skill and that process is what, so I'm an introvert. And
I mean, I am too.
Yeah. Is it hard being in an extroverted field, being introverted?
I don't think you have to be extroverted. I mean, I'm one-on-one.
Right.
I think, small talk's hard for me or that kind of thing. But I think in that setting, I think that the difference is too, in that setting, I'm the expert. And I think that goes a long way, right? For you guys too. If you're going to be nervous about something or I'm talking to a new client or I'm talking to a new sports client, I know what I'm talking about, right? They're coming to me for a reason. I know my stuff. So that also gives me some confidence. And not that I don't have imposter syndrome on the daily, but it gives me some confidence in what I'm doing and what I'm saying. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah.
Well, and piggybacking off of that, for me, one thing I usually will tell people is you're going to see the truest sense of who I am and my confidence when I'm in the gym, no matter where I am, because that is where I feel the most confident.
You know your stuff here.
I know what I'm doing. Yeah. I know, but you could see me out at a bar and I'm going to be much more reserved and intro, because I do like to read the room. I want to see what I'm getting myself into. I love that. And then I go about it.
It's very deliberate.
And for me, I feel like I've always been more of a introverted extrovert. So I'm introverted at first, but if I'm comfortable in a situation or if I'm confident in a situation, everything, the walls come down.
Yeah, I hope, Jordan, I feel like growing up, Dad was like this, where when he was a coach or when he was working or at painting as the boss, he was on and social and in that mood. And then it's like he goes home and it's like,
That's you.
That's me. Correct. That's me. So like,
nice call out Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say that, but Jordan beat me to the punch.
That is me. So then where I was going that before Jordy called me out, I hope these two are listening. I went up to Saratoga for dinner. I told you I was just naive to think Saratoga wouldn't just be a madhouse in track season. So I met some of my friends there. We ate dinner. I had a couple drinks, and then I was walking way back to my car because I had to park like way
Mike picks the first spot though. Also, like the very first spot.
I get nervous.
I do too.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've seen it. So whether there was parking or not, he was parked as far away as possible.
I just want to say that I parallel parked on Broadway today like a boss.
Yes.
And I never do that, like in front of people.
Let's go.
Oh,
shout out parking. Yeah, but so I'm walking. And all of a sudden I run into 2 parents from the gym. Yeah. And they see me here, I'm social, I'm on, I'm talking to them, I'm asking questions. And I wasn't ready for that. And I was like, oh. And they probably walked away like, was that Mike? Like, what's wrong with him? I was out of my element.
It's like seeing your teacher out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I laughed because I just couldn't picture that scenario happening. Like Mike being in that position of, shit, I got to have a conversation.
Was not ready for it.
No.
Well, if you run into me in person, you better be ready for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, Heather, please don't. I know. It's interesting in therapy because I live in the town where I therapize a lot of people. So
interesting.
Is that a word, therapize?
It is. But I can't.
Use that.
Yeah, it's a good one, right? I can't acknowledge them, and I'll tell them that. And if they want to approach me, say hi, Heather, or whatever. Cool. So I may appear rude at times, but I will not blow someone's spot that if they're walking with someone, who's that? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. I like Boston Spa though. We just moved to Burnt Hills. I was living in Chatham before, which was like
we're in Boston Spa.
which was like a hike.
Yeah.
But Yeah. What's that main street called?
Front Street.
There's some nice restaurants
There
there.
sure are. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been.
It's a nice little villa. It's a little community. My kids go to school there. Their sports are based there. It's a great community.
How come? I just want like the main street of.
Oh yeah,
town.
you went. Paul, we went to dinner. Where did we
Yes.
go?
Where did we go?
Let's go to Next Door Kitchen.
We went to Next Door
So
Kitchen.
good.
That is what we went to.
Phenomenal.
So
Yeah,
That was
good.
really good.
bar.
That was really good. That
Oh,
was really
do
good.
you guys like bourbons?
Yeah.
Bourbon selection there is.
The bartender
nice.
there was really good too.
I also get nervous when it comes to ordering drinks. I'll panic and I'll go like Crown Royal or Buffalo Trace just like that.
You seem like a Cosmo guy, no?
No.
What's a Cosmo? I don't even know.
Seriously?
Yeah, for real.
Oh, I'm aging myself here. It's like it's like the pink drink that all the like middle-aged ladies.
Oh,
Pink
I'll
martini.
yeah, I'll dabble in
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I was teasing you.
Oh, most definitely.
I'll drink anything for the most part.
I'll watch my Bravo shows with that. Me and Andy Cohen. Yeah, we'll go.
All right, we're here. I like
Yeah.
it.
I'm just trying to figure out why every town should have a main street. Like, why is your main street got to be called Front Street? Or like, I remember being
Just call it
somewhere
Main
and it was
Street.
and it Pittsfield,
Broadway.
Pittsfield's a North Street and South Street. I'm like, it's Main Street. It's the main street of the entire town.
So nostalgic sounding, isn't it?
That was a great sound.
That was a great sound right there.
That
But yeah,
too. That too.
yeah, it's like we grew up in Chatham. It was like Main Street,
Yeah.
but Chatham's so small. It's
Well,
like
Main Street in Chatham is the size of this desk. So
yeah, yeah, but good restaurants and good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I always think about this, especially in here, as I said, we have to play. We have to have psychology in our mind when we're working with people to build a relationship and get them
Yeah.
to commit to exercise and enjoy being here and enjoy us. And I always think about the nature and the nurture debate. I know it's a classic thing.
Oh, it is, yeah.
In terms of just like your genetics that you have acquired versus the environment that
Yeah.
you have from that you're in growing up, and
Yeah.
how that impacts how you think and perceive the world and treat people and talk and
Yeah. There's been a lot of research. There's always these different theories put forward of what is more important, what's more influential. Nature's like your genetics and your hereditary traits, like your physical traits and personality traits, your hair color, things like that. Nurture is going to be your childhood, how your parents parented you, your culture around you, your social interactions. And the short answer is there's no answer, right? It's hard to tell. It's hard to quantify of what's more important.
right.
Well, that's what I was just
Yeah.
thinking in my head. Is I feel it like they're equally important, in my opinion. Like
And there's
a
so
little
many.
bit.
It's so layered, right?
Right.
There's so
Yeah.
many permutations of what could be happening to someone who was born. Someone could be born a genetically a basketball star, but they're kept in a toddler bed for 12 years, so they never grow, right?
Right.
Like I know that's an extreme example, but that's how the nurture will affect the nature.
Right.
There has to be. Is there research with twins?
Yeah, so there is. There's twins. There are twins that are separated at birth. They've studied them. They come back together. They're eerily similar. Like
That's-
the same room, the same music, the same strong subjects in school.
This is
Yeah.
what's wild. It's
Yeah.
like how much is out of our control, and it's just like the DNA that we have.
What's really cool is people that get organ transplants. Have you heard like organ transplants when they receive that new organ? They literally pick up traits. They pick up likes. They pick up new foods that they never ate before. They might go learn how to play the piano. Like they do things that their organ donor did, which is fascinating.
I wonder if it's, and again, obviously, there's no way of like, I guess, feeling like really knowing is, does nature determine kind of more of like what you're interested in, kind of, and then nurture determine like your beliefs a little bit, like,
Yeah.
where, especially obviously with how things are today with different beliefs in certain things and all of that. Not to get down that rabbit hole, but just that's what just popped in my head is like, okay, you said they had the same like room, same music interest, all of that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I don't know what the nature part was between both families that they were with. Like, were they very similar families or not? But what about their like deep rooted like morals and beliefs, like that part of it, like where their parents drove home X, Y, and Z, and then this parent drove home this stuff. That's kind of like work ethic, those type of things. Like, where does that line come?
It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You think about kids and how sweet and innocent they are, and they will love anybody, they'll hug anybody, they'll play with anybody, right? And when you see an 8-year-old spitting hate on, different demographics and things, that's a learned behavior.
But is learn okay? So back in the day, you learn that from who you're around or your family. But the internet freaking changes that.
Fair
dude,
enough, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How's it been with your kids and social media and the internet? Because they grew up right in that time.
MJ's
all
a
that
Twitter god, yeah.
MJ shoots out the tweets, man.
Listen, MJ tweets, man.
He's like, plug my Twitter handle right now. But how are you with them? Were you ever restrictive on things when they were growing
sure.
up?
They didn't get phones. They didn't get phones until they were 12, which was probably a couple years past when their friends did.
A couple years?
I'm telling you, 8 and 9-year-olds with smart like iPhones now.
Dude.
And I actually, the first thing I had for them when they came home from school that first year when I wasn't home, I bought like a cellular one track phone and put it in. I'm like, this is for emergency. I programmed like grandma, your dad, and my number in it. And that's what I had for them.
1 for grandma, 2 for me, 3 for whoever else.
Exactly. Press those and that's your emergency.
Yep.
That's kind of how I rolled with it. Now, it's, they're 14 and 15. I know, particularly MJ, he's a really mature 15 in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. So, but I think you have to look at the whole of your kids, right? As far as like politics or any of like those controversial type of things go, they definitely, I think, fall in line with where I fall in line, which is not where a lot of my family falls in line, right? But my conversation with them is we don't have to agree. It's not our job to change anyone's mind, but we're going to be respectful, right? And that's the conversation we have, and they always are. But I think you have to look at the kid as a whole, right? My boys are excelling in school. They have great friendships. They're doing, they're really involved in their sports. And if I start to see that kind of thing go down, any of those go downhill, because those are the indicators, we're going to look at your phone. We're going to talk about some restrictions.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like paying attention to everything else that's going on, not just what they're doing on their phone. Because I've talked about it before on here, and I think Mike's probably talked about it. And even like this week, we had a kid in here who was talking about they started like a book Twitter, and they got a bunch of like views or likes or whatever on it, and we're just like, keep going with that because that's productive. Like there's so many ways that kids can be productive with social media that you may see them on their phone, but they could be making a post or a blog or whatever that is gaining traction, and 5 years from now that blog is going to turn into whatever it is. I mean, with MJ, it could be the next Barstool Sports.
That's his goal. That's his dream, right? And we had a conversation about it today because I swear I saw Dave Portnoy in Druthers today, right?
You might have. He's always at the track.
And MJ loves that whole thing, and MJ fits that vibe 100%. And so I'm always like, he started a TikTok channel with his sports takes and all of that, but I'm like, what are you going to, like, this is the time to start like a branding thing. It sounds so silly. It's probably what we'll get into talking about sports specialization early, but.
Yeah, we talked with Rob Zayas, who's the head of New York Sports, and you can, NLI as a high school kid, you can make money now as long
NIL.
What's it called?
NIL.
Yeah, I always get the acronym wrong.
It's because there's
National
the
Letter
National Letter of Intent, which is NLI,
name,
and then
image, likeness.
Yeah,
but you can make money off yourself as long as you don't use your school's logo.
Yeah, he's himself.
Yeah.
So that's his dream, and I'm like, start now, man.
Just tell him to wear shirts with his face on it.
Do we need to see that? Do we?
Dylan's face.
Maybe.
Well, that's like the, I've learned from the kids about Mr. Beast. He's a YouTuber. But then I've listened to him. Shout out Mr. Beast. Chat, you watch Mr. Beast.
Shoes?
What's he do?
Is he the guy who eats stuff?
I don't think he eats his shoes.
No, that's misinformation.
Don't sue us, Mr. Beast. You don't eat your shoes.
Mr. Beast is the burger guy.
Different.
He's
But
the burger
he
guy.
talked about he got into YouTube when he was 10 years old. So he says, by the time he was 22 and now making millions of dollars, he's like, well, I just had 10 good years of practice. Like I found what I wanted to do early, and I just put myself right to work. Like accumulated all these hours at a young age.
But it's such an instant gratification society right now, right? And that's why I tell MJ about, Barstool Sports. He started 20 years ago, like with a pamphlet, right? Passing out newspapers in
and
Boston.
I remember in college we would read,
Yeah.
it was like Barstool, and then they like at some point had Philly and like maybe New York, but it was just a blog you would scroll through.
Look at it now,
Yeah,
right?
I remember being in Cortland and top 10 party schools, and Cortland was on it, and I was like, let's go. It's grown so much. It was literally a written blog to what it is now.
Yeah, and I think they get fed up when they're not like blown up right away.
Right.
Yeah.
How much with your adult clients does the massive amount of information and ever-changing news cycle and crazy politics and world stuff affect them? Is that something that's talked about a lot? Or
Oh my God, yeah. First of all, there's, I love TikTok so much, like we talked about, right? But everyone's diagnosing themselves these days because there's the ADHD TikTok, there's personality disorder TikTok, there's all of these armchair experts who are giving diagnostic criteria that isn't even necessarily true. Like if you look at some of the things, anyone could identify as ADHD, right? But that's a real diagnosis. We all get forgetful today because we have 1,000 things going on, or however you want to spin it. But
I think everybody has ADHD at this point. Like
we're wired now. We're conditioned.
in some way, shape, or form.
We're conditioned. Yeah. So definitely. And what I will say is over these past 2.5 years of pandemic, like this is nothing that we've ever seen before, right? So we've all undergone this big collective thing that has happened as a world. And what really happened, especially during lockdown, people got really isolated. People got really lonely. We all had some form of grief, and not everyone really like identified that because we couldn't work out, right? We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't go to brunch. We couldn't do all the things that kept us really healthy and in a good place. And when we lose that, we have to grieve. We grieve for that, and then we start doing really unhealthy things. So during the pandemic, absolutely, it shifted a lot. And yet, the past, politically, the past few years or recent rulings, things like that, like I have a lot of clients who are really bothered by stuff, and we talk about it a lot.
But it's like rightfully so.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And that's tough. It's like you have your own personal life going on, but then you have this that
Right.
impacts your personal life and how you think and feel. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yep.
Crazy times. Would you switch to just doing Zoom stuff during COVID with patients?
Yeah. So I went into private practice right as COVID started. So I started it I made a little like office background, whatever, in my bedroom and put a desk up, and it was nice. There was no overhead, but everything was Zoom. And then in August of 2021, I got my office in downtown Saratoga, and it was at first it was probably like 25% online. Or 25% in person. What virtual did though was open up a whole world of therapists to people, right? It's because I'm licensed in New York, which is anywhere in New York. I'm in also New Jersey and Massachusetts, so I can see any of those people, which is amazing. It just opened up a whole new world where you don't have to find someone in your town and go to their office.
Right.
But I love that we have the ability to do it, but really, nothing beats in person. Nothing beats sitting across, eye contact,
Agreed.
nonverbal cues,
it's the same thing
body
with you.
language.
That's why we do this. I'll never do a Zoom
Yeah.
podcast because I feel like for us, it's not the same experience. There's no way it's as good of a conversation.
There's not an energy.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Energy is huge. What is energy even? But
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I don't have a full answer, but when you talk about being in the room with a therapist, if I get a client who is really dysregulated, really upset, sobbing, right? I am not going to sit across from her and go, "Oh my God, what's happening? Why are you so," because what's that going to do? That's going to ramp her up, right?
Yeah.
I am going to modulate my tone. I'm going to speak really softly. I'm going to speak with intention. I'm going to breathe slowly. We co-regulate off of each other, right? She's going to start picking that up. She's going to start mirroring me. And that's how I can help control some of that. So that's what you're talking about when you're talking about that energy, is that co-regulation, that thing that we feed off of each other.
And that's definitely true, because even in here, you can see it. Whether it's us as coaches or the kids in here feeding off of us. And you can just see the energy, and when we're hot and sweaty and dragging ass.
Are you talking right now?
Like, the kids see it, but we still maintain our energy and maintain the same thing we would do if it was a beautiful, perfect day in here.
Yeah.
And the kids feed off of that, and they still come in here, work hard, and have a good time and have fun. And you definitely can see like the co-regulation in this setting, and then obviously in your
Think
setting.
about when you see football players getting ready to go out and they do this almost tribal thing, right? Like what they're doing, they're regulating each other. They're getting
So
into
glad you brought
coherence,
football.
right?
So
I know, but I don't see it. I don't see it like that in baseball or other sports. I see this almost tribal, primal thing where they're getting into this. I know we'll talk about some heart rate stuff later, but that's what they're doing. They're getting into sync. They're getting into coherence. Everything's getting co-regulated amongst each other. They're on the same page.
yeah, that's real. That's like so after my undergrad, I was living in Boston. I was debating going to PT school, but I was like, I don't want to go into more debt, and I don't want to spend my years living in Boston back in school for 4 more years. So I went to massage therapy school so I could be hands-on, be able to provide that service, be better at assessments. And I was all ready to learn about, more anatomy and palpation and treatment stuff. But the best class I took, which I was dreading when I had it, was this self-care class. With this,
self-care.
I forget her name, but with this hippie woman. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to be wasting my time here for? But she was, just all about the energy you put off and how that's going to affect other people and checking in with yourself. And that stuff I use every day today still, more than any other stuff.
When in my master's program, we had a whole course on self-care. It's huge for therapists, right? Because burnout rates are really high. And I did the same thing. I'm like, self-care. Does that get a pedicure? Whatever. And it's so much more. It's so much more. And I've really bought into it over the past year because I realize how important it is. It's not just going and getting a pedicure. It's like putting yourself first, right? Making yourself a priority. I sat with a girl today and I said, I'll tell you a little bit more about kind of her situation later because it's pretty interesting. But, she's 90% her sport right now. And she's like, well, I said, well, what would you used to like to do? And she's like, And she said, I used to like to journal. And I said, okay, well, why'd you stop? I don't have time. I said, you mean to tell me you don't have 10 minutes in your day where you can sit down and journal? She's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, you have 10 minutes in your day if it's important to you, right? It's a fact. So we find those moments, and I've been trying to really lead by example with that, because it's easy to give people, I don't give advice, but it's easy to give people, suggestions or things and figure out how to, or try to tell them how to work. But I have to live it too, right? And so self-care, for me, I don't love it, but I get up at 4:20 to go work out. I've never worked out in my life. I've been doing it 6 months. Like,
bless you.
Love it. It's important for my mental health, I promise you. But it doesn't have to be something big. I tell everyone, like, my 2:00 cup of coffee every day, that's like my save, right? I have lunch, I see one client, and then I have 2 more at the end of that. I'll go get my cup of coffee, and that's like my happy place for a little bit. That's self-care. That's putting something that's important to me. If I run a couple of minutes late or whatever, okay, we'll live, right? It's figuring out what are those little things in your day can you do. Not more, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes for most things, but what's important to you?
Yeah, and exercises can be so important for that because of the psychological effects it has, right? The dopamine, the serotonin,
That's what I was just gonna say. Like, that's for me. The self-care for me is like that my workout. When I was in New York City, I purposely worked at a gym that I could go to I worked at New York Sports Club, so I could go to all the New York sports clubs in New York City. I would leave my gym, even though I could work out right there. Yeah. I'd leave my gym, go to a different one because I was like, I need to be away from where I work.
Oh, that's huge.
We do that here still, and it's huge. I'm envious.
Yeah, like there's times where like won't work out in the middle of the day when we have our break to work out. I'll wait till, especially on a Friday if we don't have a podcast episode, because we get out earlier, and I'll go to ABC Fitness. And the workout I get at ABC sometimes is better than I get here, but I can't also beat sometimes the energy that I get when I'm in here.
Paul, but
there's that balance between both.
Yep.
Even say at lunch, and like I love working out Fridays when we have a podcast because it's self-care to me. It helps me clear my head. I feel better coming into this. So say I'm crushing my workout, and this is what happens. You have some like college kids who are hanging over, and somebody come over and just be like, "Hey, Mike, like, what's a TRX row?" I'm just like, get out of here.
Hey, Mike, how do you adjust the TRX straps? Watch the goddamn Instagram video.
Just like, come on.
The other thing I found too, like through the working out, which again I am coming to love more. I'm building so much confidence. Like just the strength that I have now, right? As you get older, and I can do a lot of stuff. I'm pretty independent, and I can handle a lot of things. But I'm not strong, and so to know, like I see the increase in the weights that I'm doing, or I'm learning my flexibility and mobility is getting so much better. Like kind of that stuff also clicks with me. Like, yeah, you're doing it. It's much for that too.
I mean, you don't feel good when you don't do it, right? I mean, your mood may not be as good.
I feel like shit when I don't do it.
Oh my God, I took a week off last week to go to the tournament, and I came back, it was like day one all over again. I was like, I don't want another day one.
How much do you think of that with clients? Say you have a client who's depressed, but they're super inactive, and they don't sleep good, and they eat poorly. Like, those are contributors to how you feel, right?
They are. It's interesting, because I think with, mental health, it's hard to conceptualize for a lot of people, right? We don't have an x-ray for it. We don't have a blood test. The diagnostic criteria, check boxes are a lot of times subjective, and they're self-reported, right? So we do the best we can. When I do an intake, I do everything, a biopsychosocial. So we're looking at everything here. How you eat, how you sleep, your social circle, just about everything. And before if someone comes to me and they're like, I can't get, especially if it's a significant change or a new change, all of a sudden I can't get off the couch.
That sound like a knife? Sorry.
That sound like a sword.
I'll put my sword away. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Scary. I'll do an assessment with them, and I'll talk, if this is a sudden change, all of a sudden I'm sleeping 20 hours a night, I'll send them first for a physical. I'll send them for a neurological exam, right? We rule out anything physical, because if I start trying to treat depression and you've got a brain tumor, it ain't gonna work.
No, definitely not.
Right. So, So we do take that into account. I think for depression's kind of a unique thing, but anxiety.
Anxiety too. I should have said that as well.
Anxiety, working out, physical movement is great. Anxiety is a lot of that extra energy. You don't know what to do.
I should have said anxiety. Like
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's that physical thing, physical energy that has nowhere to go. So physical movement, whether it's just getting up and walking. It's funny because Dylan he gets nervous waiting for the bus. Like he circles the island, and I see him do it. I'm like, that's his little anxiety working out, right? So it's depression's a little bit of a tougher one. It's not. If you've never been depressed, thankfully I haven't, but you like clinically depressed, you can't understand what that is. It's not lazy. It's not wanting to do stuff. It's not procrastinating. It's not taking care of business. Just not taking care of business. It's I cannot brush my teeth today.
Yeah.
And unless you live that, and I admit that, I've never had it, so I can't necessarily identify with my clients on that, but I can certainly sympathize, with it, of what that's like, and I understand it. And so that's kind of a whole different animal. But you're right. I hear a lot of people at the gym, once they get to a better place, whether it's through therapy or medication or whatever, and they do start working out, it's funny because humans are funny. We'll do all of these things that make us feel great, and then we'll stop. And then we wonder why we feel like crap. Right. And I'll say, okay, well, when did you last feel great and what were you doing? Well, I was going to the gym. I was going on date nights with my husband. I was this, that. And okay, let's do that again. Yeah. Right? How do we replicate that?
Right.
Well, and like working out and being active is similar. I know obviously there's an end game with therapy, but you're always in that back pocket for them if they need it. So they're never really done because they still have to work on it even when they're not with you.
Things like depression, anxiety, a lot of these are lifelong things that they will have to manage.
Right.
Medication's super helpful for, depression, some anxiety. I don't think medication's applicable in every situation, but when we have real chronic things going on, it can be enormously helpful.
How's that work for you? Because you can't prescribe, right?
Correct. So
do you have somebody you'll refer out to?
I do. I have a relationship with a psychiatric nurse practitioner that I trust implicitly, and I send everyone to her. Yeah, she's great.
I think that's awesome. Yeah. You need a team.
Oh yeah, and
I collaborate. I'm a solo practitioner. I have my own private practice, but I work with psychiatrists. I work with social workers, someone's social worker if I need to. I'll work with someone's parents. I'll talk to a school if I need to. Really important to have that collaborative piece to it.
Right. Yeah, well, I love what you did when you came in here. When we did that in-service in June or July, I forget when it was. That collaboration is huge.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that just piggybacking off of that, I think I told you when we had the in-service how much I enjoyed like the sports psychology side of things when I was in school, and I get to do it here a lot. And piggybacking off of the anxiety thing we talked about is that you brought up before is how often, I mean, maybe for you it's a little different in your field because they have those feelings of anxiety and they have anxiety that they're suffering from, but deciphering between being anxious and excited, because those feelings are often inside. It's like those butterfly effect, that butterflies you feel in your stomach. A lot of it is similar. So, because right now with a lot of kids going to college, they're anxious, but they're also excited. And I'm like, you have to try to compartmentalize and figure out
That's a great question.
what you're anxious about and what you're excited about. Like you're excited because it's a new chapter, but you're anxious because it's a new chapter. And those are my favorite conversations, is the college conversations with the kids in here, because it's helping them figure out their next 4 years of their life. That's
huge.
Big commitment. So for you as somebody that's in this field, like the deciphering between anxiousness and excitement, like how do you go about that?
Well, I think, anxiety exists for a reason, right? We don't want to lose all of our anxiety. Anxiety is like the hairs that stand up on the back of my neck if someone's following me too close in a dark parking lot, right? Or if we're about to, do something dangerous that we probably shouldn't do. So anxiety serves a purpose for us. We don't want to lose all of it, but it starts to overcorrect and it starts to be life affecting, right? If I have anxiety that I can't walk in here today and talk to you because I was really nervous earlier.
You doing okay? You're doing great.
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
You are doing great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I feel good. That's
the wine
a problem.
might help, but
Well, you got any left?
Yep.
But I also think that, if it's life debilitating, if it's causing distress, if you are so wildly dysregulated, your heart rate's out, you're going into panic attack, right? That anxiety doesn't let you perform the way you want to perform. That's a problem.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today.
What you said is like, I feel like I've gotten to where I am, right? And I'm such an anxious person.
Yeah.
And I get afraid. And like when I don't feel it, I'm like, oh, shit's going to go wrong. Because I feel like this has driven me to get here, which is tough.
Well, even today, Mike, one little thing today happened, and I remember Mike coming up to me. He's like, just talk me down so I don't get like aggravated at this. And it was like so small, like something that didn't even like matter at all. And I was like, dude, it's okay. Just go coach. I can go use like the folder. It's not a big deal. Like whatever. And then eventually, obviously everything got worked out and whatnot. But it was just funny because, you know, Mike's like those feelings came up and I was just like.
Because for me,
right.
Heather, things will snowball into worst case.
You catastrophize, right? And a lot of us do.
100%. So like, and I never realized it. So I've talked on here before. When I was in high school, I thought, I don't want you to do a session with me right now. But when I was in, or we do.
Should we dismiss Paul?
Yeah, Paul, you can go home now.
All right, I'll go home.
No, when I was in high school, I thought I was just a shy and quiet kid. But I was an anxious mess, and I had no idea what I was feeling in social situations, with sports. Those were the two biggest like arenas where, you know, I think it definitely hindered just the quality of my life. Yeah, and it took until exercise, you know, was a big part of my life, and I took that to the extreme. Did baseball, got into powerlifting, tore my pec, and that was just like the thing that clicked for me, where it sent me into this downward spiral, which it's kind of silly looking back on, but I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not gonna be able to work out again or play baseball again, and yeah, so the snowballing is a real thing.
It is, and oftentimes it's the low-hanging fruit that snaps the camel's back for us, right? You might have had 100 things today that you dealt with that were mildly irritating, and then whatever this clipboard, whatever folder was just kind of it, right? That was a snapping point. You know, when we come home and slam the cabinet doors at our spouse, it's not the cabinet door that we're mad at, right? It's usually something else. So it's probably an accumulation throughout the day where now your nervous system can't take it anymore. You've done a good job regulating and managing it so far.
There you go.
Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Paul for being there.
That's what we're here for. Dan Jones is here for that too. You know,
Everybody is.
You know, we're all here to help Mike. But even myself, knowing Mike growing up, you know, looking back on it now, I can definitely see that he was. If we were in school, that was like not where he was going to be as social. I felt like, but if I remember also growing up, we oftentimes, a lot of us went to Mike's house to hang out, like a group of friends that went. Yeah. And Mike was the Mike that I see in here.
Well, that's Mike's safe space, right?
And that was his safe space. Yeah. And looking back on it now, not realizing, obviously I'm, you know, a kid at the time, but like he definitely was going like from being super anxious in one setting to, okay, I know what I can do here.
I think it's comfort zone and confidence, like I talked about earlier. You know, if you can go into an environment where you're confident, you know, if I had to come into your gym and teach people how to work out on that thing, right, I'm going to flounder. I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to be nervous. I'm not even going to want to come, right? You have mastery of something. And so, yeah, you're okay showing it.
Yeah. I mean, how much anxiety, the anxiety is outrageous now in youth sports and the pressures. And you're getting into that more now. So you started another company called Mind Body Fusion, right?
Yeah.
Where you're seeing athletes on the sports psychology front,
Yep.
which is incredible. It's not talked about at all. There's been in the last 10 years such an emphasis placed on the physical preparation, which that shift to that has allowed us to do this today. But even more important and equally as important is the psychological preparation side, which still, in my opinion, is not talked about enough, and especially post-COVID and the whole competitive landscape of youth sports and college scholarships. It's wild, man.
It is. And when I talked to, when I was kind of formulating this idea and kicking it around at the beginning of the year, because it was something I was always really excited about and thought about a lot, but how do I make this happen, right? I would talk to so many people because I'm pretty involved in the sports community. I was president of the Boston Spa Junior Baseball League for a couple of years. I know a lot of coaches. I know randomly like a lot of school principals, ADs. My kids are on school teams, coaches, and things like that. So I just kind of pick everyone's brain of, and you guys too, is this something that's needed, right? Would this add value to our community? And everyone is like, oh my God, yes, absolutely. I've never heard of it. So there's no awareness about it.
No,
and that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm doing this.
There's a huge educational component. And I hope that parents are listening, because they'll throw all the money in the world at us, which is great. But then you see a kid in here, Paul, and I mean, we could probably think of we could just keep counting right now that are anxious messes due to their sports environment, the pressures of making team, schoolwork, going through COVID, maybe their home situation, through scrolling through social media. The list goes on and on.
Let's not forget these kids are going through puberty too.
It's wild by itself.
Right? So they're getting they're getting these new bodies that they might have to relearn basic skills in.
Oh, I would never want to go back to 7th, 8th grade.
Oh, nightmare. Nightmare.
I mean, I could just think of kids in here who all of a sudden they come in and they're like baby deer, and I watch them I watch them be able to squat a shit ton of weight for a 7th grader or whatever.
Yeah.
2 years later, they're a foot taller, and I'm like, well, we gotta.
Your body doesn't work the same, but they don't know that. They want to do the same things they did. 100%.
Yeah,
and they're like, why? And I'm
like, what do we have to tell? Let's just do parents first. What do we have to tell parents to understand that if you're going to immerse your kid in the high school and even more the travel sports world, that you're more likely than not going to need some type of psychological assistance?
Well, let's look top down, right? Every major league team has psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists. They have all of that on staff, right? And I imagine most competitive colleges do too. Why not introduce them to it early? And I think what's really important for parents as they, maybe think about this, is to make sure their kids understand that they're not coming to me because they need therapy, because they're broken, because something's wrong with them, right? You think of the therapy connotation, like, am I crazy? And it's simply not that. I have a specific set of skills and trainings and services that can help facilitate their performance.
Well, and I've brought you up multiple times since we had that in-service with you in here with different kids either coming off injury or just in general. And the thing that I try to stress to them is you're coming in here and working on your physical strength. So much of your sport is mental strength. And I think that's where going to a therapist or whatever you have to do for that that's what you're working on. Like, that's your mental coach. Don't view it as a therapist. That's your mental coach.
That's exactly right. And I'm afraid that's going to get that can get a little twisted.
Exactly, especially with all the everything that you can find on Instagram and everything. But just in general, like, that's your mental strength coach. That's a way I would put it. Is like they're helping build up use your brain as a muscle,
right? Yeah.
Like build up your brain muscles.
And your heart muscle too. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that is, that is probably more important than your brain. This drives everything, right?
That's true.
So, and it's funny because I belong to a group. I have a mentor. She's out of Cupertino, California. She's worked on it for 30 years. And I gave her a shot I did one of her trainings with EMDR and in sports performance. And I, on a lark, just emailed her, hey, do you take people to talk, to kind of pick your brain? And she said yes. She responded to me. And then a couple of weeks, I did probably 4 private sessions with her. And then she invited me to join a group. One of the people, there's 3 people in the group, 3 others. So there's 5 of us total. One of them is the sports psychologist for the San Francisco Giants, right? So she's giving me so much information. So what we're learning though, or what we see when I talk to my peers, is that people come to us as a last resort, right? When all else fails, when I've bought every piece of equipment, when I've done every physical training, and I've been guilty of this, right? When you get every private lesson, you go to every clinic, you do everything. And, it's not that the kids, and this is, I think, often a misperception, it's often attributed to they're not trying hard enough, right? They're not good enough, they're lazy, whatever you want to assign to it. No amount of talent or work is going to make you better if you don't have the mental mindset for
Yeah,
it.
but the systems are going to swallow those kids up, and it's sad because if you have anxiety, then you struggle and you have performance anxiety and it affects your performance.
Yep.
You're in the system that is the competitive youth sports system, and you have a coach who only wants to win and is an old school disciplinary coach. That could end a kid's career, and it shouldn't.
Absolutely. But they don't know. They don't know what's out there. They don't know the options. We are so trained. Myself, I've been guilty of this. I've given my kids every private lesson, every private clinic, everything to, get MJ out of his batting slump. And it works for a while, but you have to get to the root of what's going on. Of course, my kids think I'm the dumbest human alive, so they won't work with me in this capacity. But, for most people, if they can just get a little buy-in to it, just see, what it's like, I think they'd understand the value of it.
Yeah, where do you start with a kid? So they come into you, they have anxiety, they're struggling with success on the field, they're unhappy with their performance and where they're at with their sport.
Yeah. So again, I'll ask questions like ruling out all physical problems and injury or illness, anything like that. First and foremost, I talk to the parents by themselves because their goals are often very different than the kids' goals. Their perception of what's going on is very different than the kids. It's enlightening. So I'll get what are your goals for your child? What do you see as the problem? And I get a lot of the down low on like home life, upbringing, disciplinary, coaches, that kind of stuff from the parents' perspective. And then I sit down with the kid alone for an hour and probably get somewhere in the middle of the truth somewhere and what their goals are, because I want them to know that they're the focus. What's important to them, what's not going right for them, what do they want to be doing differently? Again, what does success look like for you if our work together is successful? And that's kind of how I start with them. And then I come up with a plan. My format right now is that I do intensive sessions, usually about 5 hours in my office, where we go through, the first half is spent with a lot of psycho ed. And then we learn about heart rate variability training. We walk through all of those exercises. We assign times to do them every day. The cool thing about athletes is they're so coachable, right? They just want to feel better and they're used to taking direction. So anything I tell them to do, they're going to do.
Right.
And then we figure out, is there something, what's underlying all of this, right? It can, I talked to a kid who was during practice of baseball, like preseason, he was doing, killing it. And then got to game time and couldn't do anything, couldn't perform, like lost movement syndrome, he couldn't do what he normally did. And again, clinics, this, that, whatever. Turns out this is the first season without his grandfather. And his grandfather was always in the sidelines, right, of cheering him on, yelling at him. He always heard him. He always had like a special thing that he said. And the kid wasn't able to identify that himself. So we talk about that and we'll talk about EMDR, I know, but we'll go through some trauma treatment for that and make that different for him.
But I love that that's just like you can take your training from, just working with adults, because you have the sports side, but like it's nice to be able to sift through and identify what else could be going on outside of the field to put the pieces together.
Yeah, sports, it's not just I can't swing the bat or I can't, I feel so much pressure right now. Like, what's really underneath there, right? Is your relationship with your dad crumbling because you're not performing the way he wants you to, type of thing. And they don't know that. No. They don't know what that is right now.
The hard part is these kids are introduced to competition at such a young age. I don't think the brain of an 8, 9, 10-year-old is meant for traveling to North Carolina to play pool play and then 6 other games where you have to win.
Yeah. But you feel forced to almost as a sport parent.
Do you feel like that as a parent?
Yeah, because you're going to get left behind. If you don't start playing travel ball at 8 years old, you're not going to start playing at 10 and make teams, right? And it's a do I love it? No. Is it reality that I feel like most of us feel like we have to conform with? Otherwise.
Well, and I forget who I was talking to. Somebody, it wasn't even in the gym, but I was talking about the top-down effect and how, a lot of times you see it in the professional level, so then it trickles down. I'm trying to figure out why the fact that at the professional level, 90% of the athletes at the professional level, and like the statistic of 90% might be a little off, but about 90% play more than one sport.
But that's going to
all the way through high school.
But that's going to change in the future.
Is it though?
Yes.
I don't know.
I think it is too.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have, all right, then you have to be able to filter through are the best ones there, the ones that have less injuries, the ones that aren't psychologically burnt out. There's so many variables.
Right.
They're there, but you play the percentage game. The higher percentage of kids are playing single sport, so the higher percentage of single sport are going to move.
But when we talk to a college coach about it,
they prefer multi-sport.
Prefer the multi-sport. So
well, you can prefer it all you want, but the system, the facts are what they are right now. The trend is where that's going.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
Oh, no, I don't
agree with it.
We can dial back.
Yeah, we'll dial back.
It's even more the importance for you.
Yes.
So you're going to put a kid's brain in an environment that it probably isn't ready for. They probably need some assistance getting through it.
Yeah, 100%. You're talking specialization versus exploration, and when they're young, I think they need to be exposed to everything. Like, let's make a well-rounded person, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's like, let's try all the stuff.
Yeah.
And then dial it in eventually. There are a few kids who, my kids are multi-sport kids. They do golf and baseball. And there are quite a few of their friends are. But then you've got a kid, their age who's a PO right now.
That drives me crazy.
I know. And it's not healthy. I know it's not.
That's why Tommy John's off.
Yeah, he's Dylan's age, right?
Yeah,
14 years old. So that's too much for that age group.
For the people that don't know, PO is pitcher only.
Right.
Yes.
Which that didn't exist when we were growing up.
That never existed when we grew up.
Jordan's like, what are you talking? PO.
Jordan had no idea. He's like, what the fuck's a PO?
It's the lingo.
Yeah, PO. And I'm a big proponent of there's a time, like you said, there's a time when you can do that. At 14, 12, anytime before, to me, junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no reason
on the healthy psychological development side, to think about not having a kid get mentally burned out, physically injured, less of a chance of anxiety related to their sport. How important is exploration at a young age, playing in the yard with their friends, making shit up, getting into confrontation versus structured travel play?
Didn't we all do that?
Yeah.
Right? We're all pretty awesome now. That's a big missing part, I think, is just go outside and play, right? Be a kid. And there's so many kids aren't kids anymore.
That's the thing that I say all the time to kids in here is I'm like, you got to go.
You got plenty of time to adult, and it's not that great. So
I'm like,
enjoy your
you're 16 years old. Go be 16 and do stupid things that 16-year-olds do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. Okay, so let's say you get a kid in struggling with their sport. How you do that intensive? How do you start? You've talked about EMDR. Why don't you explain that for people? Because I know we did that here.
We did that in here. That was pretty.
We did the heart rate variability training.
Oh, that's what
we didn't do EMDR.
Okay,
we would do that. We would do that privately.
This is exactly why we need you to explain this to us.
Let's educate about
the heart rate variability thing, though.
Huge.
That was really
cool.
We'll
talk about that. Yeah, that's really huge.
I've used that as an example. The hot air balloon thing. I've used that as an example with kids in here of what you are able to provide for them.
Right.
And they're like, "Wow, that's so cool." I was like,
Go
do it.
So EMDR, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So we just use EMDR because it's much easier.
Yeah, that's way too many words.
Yeah,
way too many letters and big words.
Yeah, so basically it's a treatment for trauma, and we're finding it's effective in a lot of other ways. It's one of the most evidence-based practices. It is really effective. It's really efficient. Where talk therapy for someone with trauma might take years, this can usually be cleared up in a matter of months, if not weeks. So I found out about it a couple of years ago. I kept hearing things, and back in 2019, I went through some really hard stuff, life stuff, and I went through EMDR as a client. And when I say it was transformational, it's an understatement. It just changed my life. It changed my perspective on everything. And so immediately I wanted to go get trained in it. And it's an intensive training. It's a lot of hours, a lot of practicing with people and submitting those and being critiqued and all of that. But I wanted to bring it to my practice and to my clients, and so eventually I did, and it's really transformed my practice too. I'm sought out for it. It's a specialization. There's not a ton of people around here that do it. So basically what happens, I should have a better elevator speech for this, but I don't, because I kind of tailor it to everyone I talk to. But if you think, so it started back in the 80s.
I feel like I've heard about it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
celebrities are talking about it now. There's more awareness of it, right? And I hear people talk about it all the time. It's really helpful. So it started in the 80s with this woman named Francine Shapiro, and she was working with veterans. She was working at the VA. And she realized while they were talking about traumatic memories, if she did some bilateral stimulation, engaging both hemispheres of the brain, their work was done a lot faster. They were able to process a lot faster. So, for example, you think about veterans, right? And the kind of the classic tale is if they hear, a grandpa can be in Congress Park listening to fireworks, right? And he hears the fireworks go off, immediately his body clenches, his chest gets tight, his heart rate, and all of his alarms are going off. And he's going, oh, shit, I got to get out of here. I'm not safe, right? I'm not safe is what's happening. He's running this negative, I'm not safe narrative. And that's not true. Reality is, he's in Congress Park with his kids. He's just fine. But that trigger took him in real time. He felt like he was really back there. So just to go back a little bit, when we have regular memories, good times, whatever, I'll remember this day. I'll remember what you guys were wearing, what we talked about before we started, my nerves, all that kind of stuff. And it'll have like a date and time stamp on it, right? Trauma memories are processed very differently. They're fragmented. And they have no date and time on them. So this veteran that's standing in Congress Park, all of a sudden feels like he's in danger right now. There's past present confusion, right? So what EMDR does, it's almost like if you walked into your gym tomorrow morning and every piece of equipment was absolutely scattered, right? You're going to walk in, you're going to feel like, oh my God, you're talk about anxiety, right? I'm anxious.
I just got anxious thinking about it.
Yeah, this is terrible. It's unorganized. It's unorganized. It's chaos. You're anxious. It's the worst thing, right? What EMDR does is it puts everything back in place, right? It files everything, your memories back where they need to go. And then that doesn't have a hold on you like it does. It doesn't have that physical hold on you like it does. Because you guys probably have, instances in your life where if you think about it right now, it might bring a tear to your eye. It might punch you in the gut, right? Mm-hmm. And the memories don't go away. They just aren't, they're not that burden anymore. They don't dominate your life.
So explain bilateral stimulation. Like, what are you doing to use that to help?
Yeah, so bilateral stimulation, what it does, it replicates a lot of what happens during REM sleep. Your eyes do this when you're REM sleeping, So it helps for a clinician. It helps if I'm doing this to you, right, Paul? Mm-hmm. I know that you're staying present with me while your mind is free to kind of do what it needs to do. Mind's so powerful. And the stuff that comes up during some of this work is like, it can be memories, it can just be feelings, it can be things that people didn't even realize were there, or connections that they're making. So that's the piece of it. And we can do eye movements, we can do, taps. I have buzzers that we use. In fact, I have like these things called bi-taps that are buzzing in my pocket right now because I was nervous walking in here today. Right. So what that does is, we have the amygdala of our brain, little anatomy lesson. And that's what causes that fight, flight, or freeze response that we all get, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm being stimulated bilaterally like this, if it's engaging both halves, each hemisphere of my brain, now amygdala is distracted. It doesn't have the opportunity to fight, flight, or freeze. So that's why it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Okay, now I like blending that stuff too.
Yeah.
So you'll do like CBT type of stuff, like behavioral therapy?
Yeah, so CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's like one of the cornerstones of therapy. It just takes a long time, right? It's changing your thought process, and that's not easy to do, right? The idea behind it is that, your irrational, unhealthy thoughts lead to your irrational, unhealthy behaviors and feelings. So it's definitely what we talk about catastrophizing, right? That's a CBT. Mm-hmm. I forget what they call it. One of the irrational ways that we think. So what would happen is you could say, if you had this folder thing going on today, you said you started to think worst possible outcome. Like, what was worst possible outcome for you?
People think I'm crazy. It wasn't that bad with the
No,
folder.
it wasn't.
No, but I'm asking.
It wasn't that bad.
Jordan's like, it's probably what's really what Paul's saying right now.
But where did your mind go? What was the worst outcome?
Do you want me to go there right now?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I guess that's where we're going to go.
Oh, it was just that this kid wouldn't get his program. It wouldn't be written right. And that, like, any future program that Dan Jones wrote would not end up in our Google Drive.
Sorry, Dan Jones, we love you.
Okay. All right. So what we would do with that thought, because it's probably irrational. Is that true?
That's so irrational.
So irrational.
Right.
Yeah. So what we do?
Every part of that is irrational.
Right. So what we do with CBT is we kind of we put that thought on trial, right? What's the evidence that if this one thing happens, that a plan by Dan Jones will never make it to the Google Drive, right? Where's that connection happening, right? We dispute those irrational thoughts.
Right.
That's what we do with CBT.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need some things.
I'll send you some worksheets.
Yeah, we'll do this off air.
He was an athlete, so he'll follow your.
I hope so.
Follow your guidance.
Oh, that's really
That's really funny.
Okay, so you go through that. I mean, 5 hours is
5 hours is a long time.
a long.
It is, but it goes by like that.
time. Yeah.
Especially, I'm sure when your brain is occupied the way that you're occupying that brain.
Yeah.
It's got to fly.
Oh, they're exhausted afterwards, and
I would probably take
So-
a nap. Sounds like it.
I tell
Yeah.
them to.
But okay, you got the blend of that. We got the EMDR and just CBT and,
Yeah.
and talk therapy. But then here's what. So when I first moved to Boston and started training at a place, they had I forget the name of the original company. Maybe it was the Omega Wave. But it was, you'd put on a heart rate strap. It would put an app onto your phone.
Yeah.
And it would give you a readiness score, which Whoop has really like taken over that industry. But that readiness score is your HRV, it's your heart rate variability. Which, tell me if I'm wrong, it's measuring what, like the space between heartbeats.
That's right.
It's giving you a snapshot of your nervous system.
That's right.
So, are you more sympathetic, so fight or flight, or more parasympathetic, so rest and digest?
Totally.
So, explain how you use these scientific principles too, because athletes, this is where they're attracted.
Yeah.
More and more people have this Whoop band down and they're understanding
Yeah.
HRV and recovery and respiration.
So I use a program called Heart Math. I got certified in Heart Math, and I got certified in it to help my athletes, but also I actually use it with every single client now because this is applicable across all lanes of life, right? If you have a big meeting, if you, have a big job interview, if you have something going on, right? If we can pause and get ourselves in, we call it coherence, get into coherence. That's your best self, right? That's your optimal. That's where you're going to perform optimally. So I do a lot of education with that Heart Math. I hook them up. It's a little biofeedback thing, and I hook it up to my laptop, and I show them what their regular state is, and then we run them through exercises of how to begin to regulate that for themselves. Every sports client that I have, I ask them to buy a Inner Balance, and it's a thing that I'm not familiar with the Whoop band, but I might look into it because it sounds.
Yeah, I just know it's like the most commercialized one. I don't know much about it.
Well, it sounds good for like on the field and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm wanting to do, so they buy this device, it hooks up to their iPhone or their Samsung, and I give them exercises to do every single day because consistency is key, right? So they do that, and it's so helpful, right? What we're doing is teaching resilience, right? And hijacking our nervous system.
And self-awareness, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, we talk about Heart Math, and it's so that's the program I work with, and it's all about your heart muscle, right? And where the heart sends 60 times more electrical impulses to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, right? So who's in charge here?
Right.
The heart, right? This is where we lead. This leads everything. And so if we can build that resilience, if we can learn how to get into our optimal performance, whatever, isn't that the best, right? So, for example, I'll ask clients all the time, tell me about your perfect game, your perfect whatever match, and what was the best you ever had, or tell me about a time you felt like you were in the zone. All cylinders were firing, everything was clicking, and they'll tell me about it, and I said, well, what was different that day? What happened? They're like, I don't know. My lucky day.
Most high school boys, oh no.
Right,
What'd you have for lunch?
I got out of bed on the right side of the day, that day, whatever. And I'm like, it blows their mind that for them to know that I can teach them how to get into that themselves, right? They can manipulate that. They can make that happen. I got to stop tapping my nails.
You can tap.
This guy, Jordy, is
Jordy knows
an
what he's
editing machine.
All right.
Nobody will know that you're
Can you
tapping.
edit the sheen off? I know. But yeah, their minds are blown that they can harness that.
Well, and you talking on that, when I bring up the fact that kids can come see you in here, I talk about how you bring up the Patrick Mahomes. You brought up the Patrick Mahomes.
I love that
thing.
story.
Yeah, tell that story.
Because
That's great.
you tell that story because
Yeah.
you do it way better than I do.
Before we tell that story, we finish this bottle.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Pour it out. Shout out, Paul. Read the label. Shout out the Morrisons for gifting me this from.
This is Galway Rock from Vineyard and Winery.
Yeah. So Galway Rock.
I believe it's from Galway, New York. Would be
That makes the most sense.
It's local. It's great.
A delicious red wine.
It's delicious.
Let's finish this bottle up.
Careful, I almost knocked over my mic there.
Don't forget to turn it.
Yeah. Paul's new to wine. So
I
don't-
learned that tonight. Oh, you did great. Not a drip.
Oh, Paul.
Do you want more than that?
Look at, I'm good. Share, pour it around.
Let's pour it around.
We gonna slap the bag right now, Paul?
We're not gonna slap the bag.
Okay.
Well, this is a bottle, not a bag.
Give me this, please. Okay, so Patrick Mahomes, explain this, because I love
Yeah.
this story.
This
So
story, I use it
I know.
daily.
So I, it was my mentor that told me the story, and I went and looked it up myself, and it's actually on the Whoop Band website because that's what he was wearing to monitor him.
Which makes sense.
So during that big playoff game against
13 seconds left
Right.
against Buffalo.
Are you telling the story or am I?
Sorry, Buffalo Bills
Paul?
fans. I'm just
Are you
letting
telling the
them know.
story or am I?
Go ahead. We can do it together if you want.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, Heather, you go.
You go.
Paul, stay right there.
I'm teasing you.
I'm going to sit right here.
It was that Buffalo game, right? And
I was just making sure you got the all the little details.
I need the background here.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you. So he's, they're going back and forth. And as he's being measured, as he's being tracked this whole time, his heart rate would go up to like 180. And his heart rate would go up when it was score changing plays, whether he was involved or not, right? And then, his heart rate got down as low as 79 during the game, right? So, but he gets called in during these last 13 seconds and they're down 3 points.
Something like
Something
that.
like
Paul,
that, right?
come on.
Come on. You're supposed to support me here.
I believe they were down by a touchdown. No, they was 3 points. They had to tie.
I think it was 36 to 33.
Yes,
in
they
fact.
had to kick a field goal.
Right. So they had to kick a field goal. So,
Yes.
so Mahomes is called in, and can you imagine the pressure?
I would have shit my pants.
Who wouldn't? But he walks onto that field in those 13 seconds, and his heart rate goes down, right? And he gets the job done. He has put himself into coherence. And the cool part about what we're talking about with this heart rate variability training is we're training our bodies to respond differently. An absolutely normal stress response is for every system to go up, right? Our limbic system goes up, our heart rate goes up, our respiration goes up, we sweat, we're like, everything's going up. That's normal, that's typical. It's not helpful though. So we can take this heart rate variability training and we can train our bodies to see a stimulus that's stressful, it cools down. He learned that over time through, I'm sure, a lot of repetitive training. High pressure situation, body has learned to respond automatically that way. And how cool is that?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You're building self-awareness and then how to control your own.
Yeah.
And it becomes automatic, right? You practice with my athletes in particular. We work together to find out what 3 or 4 times a day can you practice this.
So what are you using to practice? Breathing techniques, visualization, what?
Yep, all of the above. So we use this thing. The little thing is called an inner balance device, and it has meditations. It has breathing exercises and all of that. It's just so the exercises that go along with that are really a lot of like heart-centered things. And so I know I'm going to sound like hippy-dippy here, but it's breathing, like focusing on your heart, right? There's a couple, and they take no more than 3 minutes at a time. There's one called I'll call it an attitude adjustment, but it's like a quick attitude shift, right? So if you're feeling anxious, would you rather feel like calm and peaceful, right? So you grab your inner balance or Whoop band or whatever, and you start to notice it, and you start to breathe with intention, and you start to kind of see yourself de-escalating. And it's really cool how that works out. You grab it, and when you're noticing those things, you start to notice everything come down.
I think that's huge. I mean,
yeah.
Listen to that. That is more important for a young athlete to learn than goblet squatting properly. When you talk about carryover to performance on the field, that's it.
Well, and I don't know if you've been watching or not. I know your kids are Yankees fans,
Yes.
right? The Derek Jeter documentary.
Yes.
So, to me, and it comes from how he grew up as a biracial kid, but every time, and he says it in the documentary, every time there was more people watching, he was ready to go.
So cool.
He was dialed in more during those World Series games, the playoff games, than he was in a regular season game against the Kansas City Royals that were probably not very good. He was more dialed in at those times because, again, like how he grew up and things like that. But are there some people where it just comes? Like it's just
Probably.
there. You know, 'cause
Probably.
when I listen to him talk, I'm like, dude, you just had it. You just had that.
Just like some people have like a God-given ability to play piano or do
Right.
things, right?
There's-
Yeah.
Some people are just gamers and naturally have it. I think about, Jordan and myself growing up. I was a workhorse and would practice like crazy and go to the field all the time and always struggled performing hitting. Where Jordy showed up to the field 3 for 3, 4 for 4, 4 for 5, like just showed up and played and was a gamer. Like
yeah, but
some
you never
people-
made an error, Mike, so it's okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't really.
It's almost
that
like
doesn't
it's-
play in
yeah.
today's game. I'm sorry.
Go on. No. But it's almost like the kids don't even care, right? They show up and they just whack. They're playing their best, but you got to talk about like how the circle of that too, right? Like you start failing or not doing what you want to do, that's a hit on self-confidence. And then that just spirals from there.
Well, and when I think of like the Jeter thing, he's almost like a combination of these two. Is like he was so obsessed, but also he was able to go into the situation and just be, hey, I know I'm gonna rock this.
Yeah.
Like,
Remember his last game at Yankee
His
Stadium?
last
Yes.
game. Every big moment of his career is huge. His 3,000th
That
hit.
gives me
3,000th
goosebumps
hit
right now.
was 5 for 5. Hit a home run for his 3,000th hit. I have a panoramic picture above my TV of his last hit at Yankee Stadium, which was a walk-off hit. The dude hits a
Unreal.
walk-off hit for his last hit of his career.
I mean, there's like someone shining down on him though
Like,
too.
yeah.
But I'm teasing a little bit. But no, he made that happen.
Yeah.
You know, he manifested that stuff.
And he talks about other parts of his life that he wished were better because he was able to compartmentalize like that. But it's finding that balance, and I think, having people like you in this industry and, understanding, Patrick Mahomes may not have always had that skill.
Probably not.
He probably didn't and had to learn it. Granted, he did grow up in a professional sports family,
Yeah.
but he probably didn't always have that skill. He probably I wouldn't be surprised if he felt pressure to live up to the fact that
How could you not?
parents were professional
But
athletes.
sports there's so many factors that mean success. I mean, we talked about nature versus nurture. You just have your genetic makeup and your body type and your
Right.
fast twitch muscle fiber.
Sorry if you're not
and-
6'10", don't make it to the NBA if you're.
Yeah, it's like you have that,
Yeah.
but then you have the ability to change your body through exercise and through training that you do. And then you have the people you put yourself around. I think parents, I mean, you could speak to it more than us. You're just trying to find what that best recipe is for your kid.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what you do, people don't see it as part of the recipe, but
It's
it
not
needs
visible, right?
Yeah, but it needs to be a main ingredient.
I 100% agree. On every level. I think all of us could benefit from therapy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? We've all got stuff. We don't get to be our ages. Do
I could.
you want to set up a session?
Sure. At this point, might as well.
So yeah, let's get it started early, because if they do on some miracle make those higher levels, collegiate, professional, it's going to be there. Why not set them up for success early with those things? Honestly, it's giving a competitive edge because no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
Why not allow them to enjoy their youth sports experience
Yeah.
and play and play
play
well
well.
and have success?
Yeah.
Why doesn't it start with that before you get to a pro level? And
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it's like you said, it's one of those ingredients. It almost should be the first ingredient when you think about it.
Yeah, it might be a little backwards.
The mental side of the game of any sport or anything you do in life, whether it's a sport or I have nieces that do theater, like the nerves that you get before that. And I was watching a video the other day of, I forget who it was. There was a rapper, and it showed him before he was going on stage, and how he still gets nervous before he goes on stage. But then he's able to,
Yep.
and I'm sure through therapy and other things he did and practice, he's able to hone it in before he walks out there and put on a great show.
I think that leads to the important topic too of like having fun, especially for kids. And it becomes so pressureful, and coaches and parents definitely contribute to that. They're well-intended. I'm not, nothing negative, but there's definitely some things that I see that could be different. I talked to a young client who, is really great at her sport. She's really, really good. And again, I think I told you earlier, I asked her, what else do you like to do? She didn't know. And, I said, so.
I ask that question a lot in here.
Yeah. Right. So, well, you have to be diverse. I think it's really important. But if 90% of your day is the sport, right? Because she loves it. She's driven. She's all of those things. But there's a part of her that sometimes I said, you get frustrated. You sometimes like not want to do it. And she's like, yeah, sometimes I really get burnt out. So I used the analogy. I said, well, I'll ask you, what's your favorite food?
yeah, I'll say I like a good cheeseburger.
Oh, who doesn't? But
Yeah.
right.
That's
So
my wave.
imagine for the next 30 days, you ate a cheeseburger for every meal, right?
I get sick of those cheeseburgers.
Well, hold on.
Heather.
It gets further, right?
no.
So you eat
Because I could
cheeseburgers for
definitely
snacks.
do a cheeseburger for 30 days. I
Right.
could
Then
definitely do it.
90 cheeseburgers?
Not 90.
Well, that's
30
three
days.
meals a day, 30 days.
Go ahead.
90
What,
now.
what would happen to me?
Snacks too, right? Not only are you eating all of that time, your time not eating, you're spent seeking out cheeseburgers, and you're cooking cheeseburgers, and people are talking to you about cheeseburgers,
Oh no.
right? Like that's gonna burn you out pretty quickly.
Yeah, no more
Yeah,
cheeseburgers.
no more cheeseburger. But also, if not if any one thing is 90% of your life, whether it's a sport, whether it's a relationship, or it's anything, an athlete, what if you get injured? where do you devote that 90% of your time now? Right? What if that sport goes away?
Yeah.
What if that relationship goes away and that's 90% of your life?
Yeah.
You're lost.
You're lost.
And that's when going back to the college conversations is when I talk to kids in here about college, I tell them, I'm like, you need to look at the college for your sport. Now take the sport out of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Who are you when you are off of that field, on that campus, at that college?
Yeah, and
because if you're not happy not playing that sport, God forbid something happens.
You know what, Heather? You're right, though. When I think about the mental health of kids in here, and we don't diagnose, but we know we're talking to them throughout an hour.
You guys have a different kind of bond and relationship. Yeah.
But Paul, some of the kids that feel like are the most content and happy, they have other passions and hobbies. I think of a kid that's in here who's 12 or 13 the other day. The kid loves like planes. And I'm like, dude, you're going to be a pilot. I told him, I said, you're going to fly me one day in an airplane. And I know 100%, he will.
100%.
But it's like his sport isn't his only thing.
And I can't remember the statistics of who goes to college, who goes pro, and all of that, right? Like if you leave high school, we know the people who have peaked in high school, right? You see them. If you leave high school and that's all you've done, that's all you've ever put your hard work or your attention to, what are you going to do now? Right? So it's the same. Yeah, it's diversifying. It's fueling passions too.
You're going to need to find a therapist to talk to. That's what you're going to have to do then.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could even look back at, one of the kids we went to high school with, Josh. Josh Guys played college football at Boston College, went to the NFL, but the kid never identified as an athlete. He's an artist. That's
cool.
what he was. He's
cool.
an artist all the way. And now
he loves snowboarding and art.
That's how I viewed
sport.
him. Like, yes, he played sports, but he was growing up. I remember seeing his he liked to snowboard and he liked art. And then now he has an art gallery. He's retired from the NFL, and he was never a Patrick Mahomes or a star player on a team or anything.
He made a good living.
He made a good living.
Did his parents foster that?
So I don't want to get into too much of his background.
Yeah.
They probably did a little bit.
Yes.
Let's get Josh on one day.
Yeah, he's somebody we definitely want to get on. Shout out Josh Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think
guy.
most of this, especially when you're talking 8, 9, 10-year-olds, where's it really coming from? Parents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the world of youth sports is crazy. And if you're a parent or a coach listening, just step back and reflect on what your kids' days and their weeks look like.
Yeah, look at them as a whole person, right? Check in a lot.
Yeah.
Check in. I think that's the thing, is check in with them mentally, because I feel they'll come in here and they check in with us mentally, but are they checking in at home? Because at home they may go, yeah, everything's fine. But is everything fine? Because when you're in here and I hear what you're saying, whether it's they're burnt out from playing every single weekend, going to Alabama, New Jersey, this, that, every single place over going to California. It's like, one, it's a burden on the parents, and two, it's a burden on the kid. And the whole point is to have fun playing sports.
Yeah, and I think we just need to view what you do with Mind Body Fusion and the sports psychology end as being it needs to be at the forefront of youth athletic development.
Absolutely.
It's like you're going to have psychological preparation,
Agreed.
Sports psychology, whatever you want to call it. And then it's almost like we talked about the pyramid, Paul, with training, with solid movement, so quality movement at the bottom, and then strength, and then power, and then speed. But think about the bigger picture. It's like
mental health.
The mental health at the bottom.
Very bottom.
Physical qualities, sports skills, game strategy. That's the little pieces.
And I think we do a good job in here of, even though subconsciously we may do it, I think we do a good job of focusing on the mental part of it.
Oh, I know you guys do, and I know you guys are such great advocates.
For the physical side of it. Yep. But not everybody does that, and that's the problem. Is we're here, but what about the rest of the other?
It's like discouraging and it's frustrating, right? But I know I can touch what I can touch, and you guys can touch what you can touch, and that's I know what an effort you make, and I know how important this. You guys had me in. I've picked your brain a million times, and I know how important of a topic this is to you guys, and you're passionate about it as much as the physical aspect of it. So we can do what we can do, and we can hope it spreads.
Yeah, and you can just hope to you can never combat the culture of how this industry is with youth sports, but you can do your best to make as much of a positive dent as possible. So we appreciate what you do, and want to continue watching you grow and just help kids be happy with sports, help kids get better at sports.
help kids have better self-awareness with themselves in their sport.
Help kids find things they like besides sports.
Yeah. So,
And everything you just said is applicable across all lanes of life, right? It just makes us a better, well-rounded person. We can handle anything that comes our way better if we learn how to manage all of this now.
And you know, just from my own personal experience, I still identify as an athlete to this day. And for me, there was definitely a time in my life where I was like, wow, I don't have sports to play. I don't have this. And I still play in a adult flag football league, and it's a great time, and it's very competitive. But at the same time, I had to find other things that I was passionate about. And one of the things that I love doing is helping other people. So like that, to me, I'll put all my eggs in that basket every time.
Well, you're doing a great job because your gym is thriving, and my boys can't wait to get back here next week.
I can't wait to have him back.
I can't wait. Block out the hour to debate with MJ, Paul.
Listen, MJ's gonna have to sign in for 2 hours because I'm gonna sit at this desk right here, and I'm gonna have him sit in my office, and we're gonna have some talks about things.
That kid, he's something special.
Love the kids, man. I love
know.
those kids. Hey, where can the people find you at? They can find Mind Body Fusion, other places to find you. Just
So the easiest way is my website, Mind Body Fusion, mindbody-fusion.com actually. And on there is what I do, how to get a hold of me, how to book a consultation. That's really the easiest way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that linked to your Instagram or any social stuff?
Yeah, I'm getting better at social. I was
know,
talking to you
we
about
talked
it. I'm
before.
bad, but I understand how important it is, so I'm trying to get better.
Sometimes it's easier to find the social media and then click the link in the thing. So that's the only reason that I bring that up.
Yeah, it's a weird
But yes,
weird world.
mindbody-fusion.com.
Thank you.
.com.
Yeah.
Yes.
Find them. So
definitely find Heather.
Thanks for coming, drinking
course.
wine, talking.
Thanks. Yep, loved it.
It's a fun Friday
Thanks,
night.
guys. I appreciate it.
Definitely a great time.
Appreciate you a lot. We'll catch everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks.